enlivening and put us on a growth path. And if you can't get comfortable with being uncomfortable, you're not going to be able to bring your clients to a space of being uncomfortable with where they are, and therefore hear the voice of inspiration that moves them towards what they want. So attending to your own development, your own depth as a human being is essential if you want to be sustaining your own excellence in your work. So I hope to disturb you a little bit, just a little fair warning. And I wrote stimulate curiosity there because one of the most important skills as a practitioner is self-reflection. And what I'm talking about here is less about analyzing what happened in your last session or how your business is going over the last 30 days. I'm inviting you to start to explore, who is my inner coach? Who do I hear whispering in my ear? What is it that I visualize as I'm present with my clients? That part of you that's able to speak to you internally without compromising your full presence with the client. That's what I mean by an inner coach. And it takes practice to build the ability to listen internally, to hear that messaging, and part of that starts with reflection. I'll talk a little bit about those kinds of skills.
Multitasking.
And then revealing insights. So I don't do talks, I create conversation. We'll be full participation here today. And so I want to give you permission to raise your hand or just blurt. That's totally fine. It will not bother me in the least. As things start to bubble up for you, particularly anything where you feel a little challenged, please speak it. And let's go down that river because it's in our field anyway. How many times have you sat someplace and say, oh, no, I'm just going to observe? And the thoughts are bubbling up. And you know in your heart that whoever is convening the conversation feels every thought in your head. How do you know that? Because within about 10 or 15 minutes, they lose their way. They have to pause and go, what was I going to talk about? Right? All of those stutter steps that happen by someone who's convening the conversation, you cause. You cause because you have things that are revealing themselves to you. And when we hold it back, we actually infuse the field with hesitation. See, you really are that powerful. Do you believe it? Yes. Good. Awesome. All right, go ahead and turn the page. So I'd like you to turn to any partner in a minute. But as you look at this particular slide, I have the belief that all of us are yearning to know what we're here for. The big existential question, why am I here? Why did I incarnate in a body? Why do I live in South Florida? Why am I a coach? Like, what is it that's compelled my life to show up the way it does right now? And we rarely have a place that we can speak about that. And yet, isn't that what we do as coaches? We create the space, a safe environment for people to listen deeply to themselves and claim and declare what it is that is their meaning. What's their original spark? What is their origin of magnificence in their lives? And how much of their life are they tolerating? Something that's less than that magnificence. What must they tap into in themselves in order to make different choices and to engage in life in the fullness of who they are? We have that great privilege to create a space for that to happen. So do that for yourselves. So take a moment quietly and say, why did I come here this morning? What am I doing here on a Sunday, engaged with my colleagues as coaches, listening to this person? And if you were to claim and declare the experience you want to have over this next 90 minutes, what is that statement? Take a moment and jot your own notes and then turn to a partner and share it. And I suppose we should say, for the Facebook Live people,
share your answer with me.
Share your answer with Barbara.
Yeah.
are you taking a picture of me drinking coffee?
Okay.
Okay. This is what happens when coaches get together. Okay. This ship works. Finishing up and thanking your partner. And I thought I'd share a little something from Facebook here. Our colleague Lori, who's in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, says, "Coaching lights me up like nothing I've done before in my life. It's the best way I know to connect with people and serve my authentic self." Yeah. Thank you, Lori. So, anybody want to just popcorn what came up in your sharing? It's not required.
I came to meet new friends, meet new coaches.
I just saw that card exchange. I think mission accomplished. Good. We're only like 10 minutes in. What the heck? Anybody else? Yeah.
So, as always, I come to these ICF events to learn, and that's an automatic. I'm always working with people. To grow, to share, and meet new people. And It's been a success so far.
When you hear yourself say the word grow, Brad, what is it that you imagine expands as a result of being here this morning?
When I talk about growth, it's taking something new, internalizing it, and then turning it into something that I can share with clients and other.
Okay. Did you hear there are like 4 micro skills underneath all of that? And I'm calling it out, thank you for playing with me there a little bit, because I think sometimes we assume our clients understand what the work really is. Those 4 micro skills, every one of our clients are asking for. They may not say, I'm hiring you as my coach to grow, but they do want something to be different. If they could do it themselves, they would have already done it. But they have something that they're longing for, and they can't quite articulate it because it's just outside their comfort zone. How many of you know the reticular activating system? Some of you? Okay, so it's part of our neurophysiology, and it's what keeps us in place. From a neuroscience point of view, everything we are as a human being is our experiences. And we've got a vault of experiences. And it is a vault, mind you. It's very hard to crack the code on this vault because our brain likes to be a conservationist. It gives us habits based on our beliefs and our values and our experiences, our mental models, the assumptions that we're making. And it doesn't like to have foreign objects. It only likes things that register to what's in the vault. So we have a lot of force against us to begin growing. So it's important to remember and have some compassion for the fact that you all have learned how to grow. You can't be a coach without being in continuous learning. Not so much for our clients. It's a big piece of what they're learning about, and to have compassion for the micro level of this. And then it's an opportunity to get curious on their behalf about what does grow mean. So I was simply modeling that method. All right, but there was one over here. Go ahead.
Why I'm here?
Yeah.
Well, I came to see you. And
Oh,
as everyone
so
knows,
sweet.
as
Thank
everyone
you.
who knows me, I'm not a morning person. So this was
You're in London. Oh, what a great way to start International Coaching Week. Awesome. Thank you. So how many of you know John O'Donoghue? So I'm assuming you probably read Adam Cara. Not all. So John's an Irish poet and spiritual teacher, no longer with us, unfortunately, but his legacy lives on for sure in a very vibrant, vital way. And I was listening to a symposium he did for a group of therapists, and he had a line that literally I had to rewind to YouTube like 6 times because I was in tears when I heard it. And I was trying to figure out what is it about what he's just said to me that is so profound. And this is the line. I always look just to make sure. Change happens in the implicit, unsaid region. Change happens in the implicit, unsaid region. And you know, when I named my coaching practice inviteCHANGE, it was in recognition of the fact that all my life I believed that change actually was the easy part. It was all the uncertainty on the other side of change that was the hard part. That's where all the fear comes at. And if instead I put myself in the place of best potential and I allowed myself to imagine what it is that I wanted and I got really particular about it, I could invite the change into my life that would be the most in alignment with me. And gee, wouldn't everybody want that? So, yeah, well, 25 years to figure out that no, not everybody wants that. But I want to give that gift. And I realized when I read this quote that that's it. The depth of silence in our coaching presence is what evokes from another person their sovereign self. In that quiet, in that pregnant space, because we are absolutely open-armed holding them in possibility and wholeness even when they can't see it for themselves yet, they know we can see them. And out of that quiet comes a thought. Sometimes it's a chuckle. Sometimes it's a tear out of the edge of their eye. Sometimes it's a big inhale or a big exhale. And they realize, you know what, all that out there pales by comparison to the richness of what's in here. And it may be only, but now they know it can happen. And it can happen over and over and over again. And the next time they come to a session, it happens for a few minutes. And over time, which is why coaching is done over time, they begin to self-trust that they can access that life force at any time. I think about our work as a sacred livelihood. And I don't know if you all have done some life purpose work, but often what I hear from clients is they're so projected out on what they do for other people that they don't have any connection to an inner self. And I think life purpose work helps them make that connection. So if you don't have a technique for doing that, I would encourage you to explore. How many of you know Jack Canfield as an author? Okay, so he wrote this book, Success Principles, which has been on the bestseller list for like way too long as far as I'm concerned, because it's filled with everybody's work on the planet around being better human beings. It's not Jack's original work. Jack's done this collation, if you will, curation maybe. And there's a wonderful exercise in there from Arnold Parent to write a life purpose statement. So it's another tip. I'm full of those. My life purpose is to awaken, catalyze, and energize love. That's it. That's my miracle. And when I remember that, nothing is hard. I have longer versions of my purpose statement. I scratch my head and go, what was that again? So I think as I've gotten older, I realize simplicity really matters. So I encourage you to see what is that original medicine that you came here for. So that when you have those moments of doubt that somehow what I'm doing here for a living isn't working, the first place to look is with yourself and come back to that place of purpose, meaningful purpose that's uniquely yours. Change lives in that implicit, unsaid region. So the next slide in the deck, and I started using this a few years ago because I would ask people, in the ICF definition, we talk about the purpose that the actual end of the definition statement is maximize potential. And so I'd ask coaches all the time, what does potential mean? Crickets. That's all I got was crickets. I'm like, wow, that's just not okay. So there you have that etymology of the word. And the more serious question for me is, what is it that stops us from expressing, naturally, easily, spontaneously expressing our full potency? Because if we can't figure that out as coaches, we sure as heck are not going to be able to create the space for clients to do it for themselves. Now, I've already talked about the reticular activating system. So for the science geeks, you know that there is a lot of built-in objection to being able to naturally express ourselves. That reptilian brain says, I don't want to be too exposed, because then I won't be safe. But who are we not safe from? Who are we not safe from? Ourselves. Exactly. So as practitioners, our ability to have practices that help us unleash all of who we are and to trust that we can manage our own safety processes is what gives you more capacity to do it with clients. This is probably exponential, not just a one-to-one relationship. The degree to which you will do your work will open up your practice and the range of clients you work with substantially. Now, that might feel a little scary. So this is an inquiry question. How many of you learned inquiry questions in your coach training? Yes, good. Something to be with over time. I write on this question, this one that I put in the deck for you, once a quarter. And I do it all day long. So I'll start in the morning after meditation and write a couple of pages. If I take a break, I'll come back to it. It's a discipline I put into myself because I realize that what I define as my potential is changing all the time. I get bigger, and then I'm out in the world, and then that becomes a habit. So then what's next? Because I think we completely underestimate how unlimited we are as human beings. And how do we unlock it? That's up to us. We have to have a practice to do that. So that's tip number 5 or 6 or wherever we are. How many of you have found that your clients don't understand what potential means? What comes up when you say it?
Actually, I don't think anything comes up. I think it's never defined. Like I say potential, they say potential, we just agree. But actually, now that you said that, it would be good to say, what do you mean? What do I mean?
Yeah. I've been lobbying with the folks at ICF in Lexington that we add a word to the definition, realize and maximize potential, because I think we just assume that people know what they're not using, the latent part of them. I mentioned Sir John Whitmore earlier. I was in Turkey with him in 2010, I think, and we had a whole bunch of business people in the room, and he's railing at the front of the room about the crash, and we all should have been paying attention, and shame on you bankers in the room. And I'm going, oh, John, relax. But ultimately, where we got to was the surveys that are done with CEOs about potential, and they say, how much of your organization do you think is using its potential, and where do you think the number is?
30, 20.
Oh, pretty smart crowd, 30%. And that's been steady. Now, doesn't that just make your stomach sick? Wow, that we have so much more to us as human beings that we're not bringing in. Our workplaces are our majority of our awake time, right? We get to bookend it with our families, but the big part of our awake day is in our workplaces, whatever that is. And that we're only bringing 30% of our potential. No wonder we have big problems to solve and we can't seem to get to them, right? So to me, coaching is that catalyst, change agent to help people tap into more of what already lives in them. And the first is they need to realize that it's there. Yeah.
So when I think of potential, I am an individual. I think of it as endless because it's something that we don't really ever reach. It's just because it's no, it just keeps going, right?
Like an artesian stream.
Yeah.
It's always self-filling.
It's all, and there's more, there's more, there's more, you know, and so I'm not sure when asked 30% of potential, is it from that reference that it could be, there's so much available, and that will, you know, that if someone said I'm at 90% of my potential, or my company's at 90% of their potential, are they limiting? Are they thinking, oh, we're great, and we don't have too much more to go? So I'm just throwing that out.
No, I think it's an excellent question. So the way I might frame it is, potential is not a destination.
Yeah, that's
right?
why
It's an ongoing process of expression. So the question is, am I tapping into all of my capability and resource and innate creativity to be expressing in the world? Am I using my potential for that purpose? And what the CEOs were really speaking to is, I know we have more talents in our organization than we allow people to contribute. And as a result, we are not contributing to our customers and our communities as fully as we could be.
so there's more to unleash.
Exactly.
That we are actually intentionally inhibiting.
Yes.
And limiting.
Yes. And that's a whole big subject. Go ahead.
I like the fact that you use the word allow, because one of the fundamental competencies of a great leader is to allow that potential to surface and be exposed and be applied. And a lot of leaders that I talk with, coach, don't realize that they have a requirement or an obligation to do that.
Yeah, they have the key to unlock the door,
They do,
right? And they don't realize it's in their hands, and actually they lock the door.
They do.
Out of their desire for predictability and consistency and repeatability, and they miss the big opportunity. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think it's actually an interesting statement. Gallup's done a lot of work around strengths, and the percentage of people that say that they get to live within their strengths on a regular basis every day in their work is somewhere in that region too, which there may be some correlation there.
Yeah. In fact, there was a McKinsey study done in 2017, I think. 70% of leaders report themselves as inspiring. They think they are inspiring. 82% of employees would take a pay cut if their boss got fired.
Wow.
Let's figure that piece out. Let's work around strengths. But then the real question is on both sides here. So those of you that work with middle managers or frontline supervisors, where are they not expressing their full potency? Where do they say, oh, I couldn't possibly say that? That would be in my generation, it was a CLM, a career limiting move. I couldn't possibly push back on my boss. Now, thank goodness, we have Gen Y and Z who don't believe that at all. Right? They're pushing back like crazy, and I think, fantastic, that's important. So how do you work with the older, more seasoned personnel in the workplace to help them to see they're not being threatened? Right? Because that's where they stop themselves. It's like, how could this little whippersnapper tell me what to do? Or some form of that. And ultimately, what a gift. So if that more senior leader can see, I might be a little stuck in my rhythm. I might be in my vault of my Raz. And there's something outside that's calling me to see that there's a new possibility. We can help them open up and allowing themselves the possibility that they don't have all the answers, and that there could be an answer that would be a breakthrough. It doesn't have to come from them. They don't have to carry that like the bag of rocks up the hill. Remember the Sisyphus myth? Right. So that's the old hero myth in leadership development that we're dispelling right now. That leadership comes from every single person. It starts being a leader of self, and ultimately being able to work with others and see the leader in them. That's where collaboration happens instead of competition. So we're in big forces of change and transformation right now. And the only way to do that without struggle, where does struggle come from? I'm attached to my table, right? Attachments. We're attached to our expertise. We're attached to our experience. We're attached to our history. We're attached to the identity and the adulation that we get from other people. Really? That is a fleeting moment. Yes, take the adulation. I'm not saying not to do that. However, in the moment we think we are that perception from another person, we're disconnected again. And we're going to be unhappy. Now our longing to be in connection gets kicked in, and we're out there looking for it again instead of finding it back here at home. And that's the next slide in your deck, which is essence. I spent a lot of my professional life in San Francisco, California, and I would get asked to come and speak about coaching at MBA programs in the region. And my opening line was always, what does essence have to do with being a good leader? Nothing. I'd say on a scale of 0 to 10, how important is the essence of the person to being a good leader? 0, -1, 1. And we would spend another 9 minutes exploring simply that concept. So I've given you a little definition there. This is one I found a few years ago, and I went, oh yeah, that's so it. It's the core self, stripped of the convenience of personality. Now, Jungian psychologists would tell you that the personality is essential to develop. We do that from about 0 to 20. And then we sort of hang out there in the comfort of our personality, and it's everybody else's fault that they can't get along with us. I'm not changing. I like who I am. And then we all hit a moment in our life journey when we say, this is kind of lonely here. This is not quite what I signed up for. I remember my moment. I had the job, I had the bank account, I had the house, I had the, all the things that outer life said was success, and I was really unhappy. I was really sad. I'm like, this can't be all there is. There must be something more. And that's when my coaching get curious about how many other people were on the planet that weren't living their bliss. And I feel so grateful to do this field. I don't have a job. I get to be in this exploratory process of optimizing, maximizing my potential in every conversation that I'm in. Which means if I can do it, everybody can do it because essence is with every one of us. It's a level playing field. So I encourage you to ask your clients, what is their essence? Who are you when nobody's looking? Is that Shania Twain? No. Did I do that dyslexically? The country singer about dance like nobody's watching? Yeah. Have that conversation with your clients. What do you think? What do you feel? What do you sense in your body? What is the expression? If nobody was watching that you would be in all the time. And let them connect to something that's real. And then the perceptual contrast. So this feels great. And when you're with your executive team, you're all buttoned up. What do you think you're signaling to them you're expecting of their behavior in decorum? Oh, that's pretty staid. I said, yeah. And what are you watching happen? I'm watching them be at each other's throat. Healthy conflict is a good thing. I'm not saying no conflict, but what I am saying is when people don't feel like they can be themselves, they're back in their raz in that vault. And it's limiting, and we have to protect their territory. So our opportunity is to help the leaders start to open up and allow more of their natural expression to come forward. I had a CEO of a healthcare system who hired me because he wanted to exit the organization in 6 months. He was clear, he was done, he was getting out of there, and he wanted help to make sure the transition went smoothly for his team. What he was burnt out. He was carrying the weight of his entire team. He was writing 6 white papers a week and handing it to his team and then expecting them to come and have a discussion with him in the next week's staff meeting. Wow. And as we started to unpack what was motivating that for him and how he was seeing the contribution and the impact it was having in the discussions with his team, he started to realize, oh, I've completely disenfranchised them. I've taken all their authority away and I put it in my hands, and no wonder they don't want to do anything with what I've been writing. So he stopped writing white papers. He came clean with his team and said, I get that I'm not actually seeing you and what it is you uniquely want to contribute on this team. And they spent the next 90 days rebuilding. Who are each of you? What is your contribution? Well, needless to say, he did not leave the organization. He got rather ignited again. And over the next 3 years, led probably the most successful acquisition project that's happened in healthcare in the last 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, win-win. Win for the acquiring organization, win for his organization that was sold. And it was because they maximized the potential of everybody on the team. They all rose to the occasion to do something they never thought was possible by seeing the essence of who they are. So how many of you have done an essence activity? At some point in your career, a few of you. What opened up in your own life as a result of that?
Clarity and confidence, but not primarily confidence, the ability to shut the voices down when things get hard and say, wait, this is what I hear, this is what I meant, and that commitment.
Yeah. And to me, this is really what building trust and intimacy is all about, you know, in the core competencies. So we're creating that space for the client to hear the voice of inspiration louder than the voice of doubt. Gehil Gibran has a wonderful phrase in The Prophet that doubt's too lonely, appealing to remember faith is her twin sister. And to me, that's really what we're doing when we connect back to essence. We're restoring our sense of faith in self. Maybe a different way to talk about confidence, because often that word confidence is about bravado, charisma. Right? Confidence is often. Somebody else that hand up?
I did. I would say that the confidence definitely, Paula, I get, but it's also that instead of living from circumstances, I used to feel like Gumby and this or not, is that when I return to my essence and I even just say it out loud or out loud in my head, I can face any circumstance because I'm connected to myself. So it doesn't matter what's happening out there. I'm really connected to myself.
Yeah. Beautiful. So she's going to the next slide, but go ahead. That's great. It was a perfect bridge.
I just said, I think it, for me, connects me in with my purpose. So it's like a big zoom out, and I have a much larger container.
I think photography is one of those very extraordinary creative acts, but there's a built-in irony to it. The camera lens sees absolutely everything. Everything. We don't. Our Raz does this. And I love going to art museums, and I can sit in front of a painting once a week for weeks, and all of a sudden one day I'll go, oh my God, there's this whole part of this painting that I had never seen before. And it's exactly that opening of our aperture. And I think it's interesting, I have the same experience you had, that the more I'm grounded in my essence, the more practice I have to be centered, the easier it is to open my eyes. And so when we get pushed and we're working too hard, we're not getting enough sleep, we're not attending to our own well-being, we're only seeing a little bit of our clients. We are not able to open the aperture and experience what's in the implicit unsaid region. And yet that's where our artful mastery is. It's in that implicit unsaid region, and it comes through our coaching presence. So these are all things that are extremely connected if you want to increase your artfulness as a coach. And the Rosetta that's on the next slide is something we use in our coach training program. You'll notice the blue ring has the word circumstance and context on it. I definitely lived on circumstance and context probably well into my 30s. I grew up in a family where both of my parents worked, and I had my first job when I was 11, and I never stopped working. So the belief system I grew up with was see what the job is to be done and go do it. Even if you don't know how, you'll figure it out as you go. Keep your head down, deliver the results, you will be rewarded. I was really good at it. I was really good at it. And the first time our organization did a salary survey to figure out if all the jobs were priced correctly to the market, I was 35% below the entry level position I'd been in for 5 years. So the moral to the story is, I was like this. I hadn't built relationship and connection in the organization. I actually hadn't told my boss most of what I'd accomplished. I never got recruited for jobs. I saw stuff that needed to be done, and I went and said, hey, I'll do that. Not so good, right? That felt terrible. They did raise my salary. They had to get a board exception for it, and I learned a really valuable lesson that belief that my dad gave me absolutely built a lot of capacity, but it had cut me off from relationship. I couldn't see that there was more out there. And I know this happens with my clients. So whatever your limiting beliefs are that have gotten you to the certain place that you're in, the next place you're going to lives outside of those beliefs, and the same is true for your clients. So as you do your work and open your lens, you will be able to open the lens for your clients in the same way. And that lives in the authentic self. So instead of coming from the outside to the circumstance, I learned to accept who I was, my essential traits, what makes me me. And I created practices, which is what Pathway is all about. What are the practices that help me remember who I am? Particularly when I'm about to walk into a really scary meeting, right? I take some moments and, oh yeah, I am alchemical lover. I am sovereignty. I am radiant black pearl. I am savvy, sassy, generous expression, riding on the winds of joy. My essence statement. When I connect to that, in that instant, I shift back into all of who I am. And I can walk into that meeting and I'm not shape-shifting or being Gumby, as Sarah said, to try to fit what's in front of me. I'm being me and letting them be them. That's the most important point. Yes, come home to yourself, but what we do is we liberate everybody else because we stop projecting on them to be something for us. So that's the value of being in your authentic self and allowing that to be the inside-out emanation. And truly, it's an emanation. It doesn't have to be by what you do. It's who you're being.
One of the things that I've recently learned, and you just said it, but I would have heard it a different way earlier. But I heard you say, remember who I am. And the critical piece is I am. Not remember who I am as a coach, remember who I am as this. All the labels and all the different things we say about ourselves you know who I am, but you do know who I am because energetically, mirroring, emotionally, we humans limit ourselves by keeping it cerebral and words. But I know who you are just by the energy and the resonating that
Right.
I'm
You,
having.
you can
right
feel
now.
this,
Yeah,
right?
totally. And the I am of me, I am you. What's happening. And that higher consciousness that we never let ourselves see into. And that's
Never.
the essence.
Never let ourselves.
Well, when we're thinking so much.
Yes.
When we're thinking
Right. That's the
and
barrier.
doing and all that, it's being, but that's stillness. That's not about you.
Oh, yes.
Really, that sitting still and knowing the I am.
When you think about, and I saw your hands, so we'll come back to you in a second. When you think about your coaching session, just jot a number down. What percentage of the time of your 30 minutes or hour are you in silence with your client?
20%.
And what comes from the silence? What you notice when you've had moments of silence, what's evoked?
You just allow a person to be who they are and take their own decisions instead of I
Right.
guess the social.
Giving them the I am, right? Allowing them to have the I am moment.
So when I'm in silence with my clients, what I notice is I give them the space to be in silence, to go deep with themselves. In the beginning, it was hard for me to see the client in the silence and what's going on. Right? But nowadays, I realize that that's precious because it's when they are really going to places they do not dare to go by themselves.
That's so important what you have just said, right? Nowhere in their lives do they give themselves that permission. We are the safe haven, Harvard, where they can just moor their boat for a moment. And it doesn't really take very long. That's what's so interesting to me. When we leave the pregnant space, it emerges.
Truth, and it's where the vulnerability comes. To leave that safe space to allow it to organically evolve. It's like you can see in that moment that something's aligning inside. So when they click, 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 emotion usually shows up right away.
How many of you have read Nancy Klein's work, Time to Think, or More Time to Think? You did, because it's in coaching supervision. Yes. Nancy has this principle of generative listening. And I heard her speaking one time, and she said, here's the tip for coaches. When you are about to say something to your client, count to 3. And leave the space a little bit longer, because what you are experiencing in that pull to want to say something is actually the client's work. The client is working, and you think they're wanting something from you, but that's not what's going on. They're actually dropping into, yes, we use the term vulnerability. I prefer to say they're dropping into their true self. We call it vulnerable from an egoic place. The ego says, I have to have it all buttoned up and handled. Right? When are we ever handled? We don't come with an operating manual. Right? We're always in the not knowing. And when we can allow that moment to say, I don't know, what I did know. What do I know? Who am I? This is what I want. And then it gets said. And when we wait and let that silence be a little longer, we're essentially saying to the client, they may not know this consciously, but we are essentially saying to the client, you matter. What you see and hear and feel and experience in yourself matters. And I'm here in witness of it. Because there isn't any place in their life where they let that happen. Except in the dark of the night, right? In the dream time, or maybe at the dawn in the morning before they get out of bed and they face another day. And then they lock it in their heart. Gosh, we need to liberate this. This is what the world needs. It needs all of our hearts. That's the cool work we do. And you had a question.
First, thank you very much, Dennis, for giving this amazing event. My question is, you spoke about quiet and being quiet in your confidence. So I'm curious to know what is your own definition of confidence? Like confidence equals
For me, it's bliss and unconditional self-love. I actually said that to Jack Canfield because the book that I'm writing is called This Ship Works. And it's really all about our cornerstone principle, that when we hold ourselves as whole, resourceful, capable, and creative, we are able to do that with everybody else. And we see all of who they are beyond the circumstance, right? And I know that that occurs for me when I'm in unconditional self-love. Because he said, oh, you can't talk about whole, resourceful, capable, and creative. I'm like, okay. He said, what's underneath that? And I said, sovereignty. He says, oh, you definitely can't say that word. And he said, what's underneath that? And I said, unconditional self-love. He said, probably not a mass market term. And that's when I knew I'm right and he's not, right? Because that's my message. That's my message. Unconditional self-love. It was the moment I could own that and realize all that stuff I've been striving to do in my life was meaningless. They're sort of like Christmas balls for the Christmas tree, but I didn't have a Christmas tree. Right? Unconditional self-love was the tree that had some roots and knew how to grow and nurture itself. I needed to have the responsibility. So that's where sovereignty came from, which is that we are self-ruling. Some of you might know Don Miguel Ruiz's work, the 4 agreements, right? And he's brought some more things forward with his sons. When I last heard him speak about it, he referred to it as the inner Congress. Like we all have guidance inside of us that knows what's in our best interest. We simply don't slow down enough to listen to it. And so to me, this is the quiet confidence. It's the moments when I allow myself to be still and to listen to an inner wisdom. And then examine, where am I choosing on my terms or somebody else's terms? And I always know, I have this phrase, my team drives my team crazy. If you're rolling a snowball uphill in a mudslide, just stop. It's just not gonna work. And that's that moment when I've given over to somebody else's expectations and I'm disconnected from the essence of who I am. All right, where are we? Oh, we're doing well. What's on the next page? Sovereignty. See, I didn't even know I was going there.
You are always going there.
Who likes to read poetry? Anybody here? Will you read the Rumi quote that's on that slide, please?
Sovereign self-ruling is also my framework. When we choose to live sovereign, we generate agility and integrity. We do this by self-authoring the choice of relationship to the conditions of our lives. Seek the wisdom that will unite your knot. Untie your knot.
But unite's interesting Freudian stuff there. I have to think about that.
From my essence.
Yes.
Seek the wisdom that will untie your knot. Seek the path that demands your whole.
See why really you have to untie the knot, right?
Exactly.
Or unite the knot.
Or unite the
If you're not, so.
Yeah.
Exactly. The principle of sovereignty came forward for me because about 12 years ago, work. Now, all of you went through coach training, and you were far more advanced as a practitioner than your hours of experience. They don't let doctors operate on a patient without years and years and years and years and years of practice, right? You don't get permission to do it. And yet, as coaches, we have an opportunity to start working with clients very early on in our coach training. Why is that? I wanted to understand, what is it about our profession that distinguishes it in this accelerated way of learning to do something quite sophisticated, this partnering that we do with our clients? And the answer that I came to is that this profession, the learning of it, is an act of awakening our consciousness. We step back into wholeness. And that's what everybody is seeking. We're all in that journey, trying to come back home to ourselves and to relieve the struggle of being somebody other than who we are. And as a result, because we walk our path, we're able to be with other people in a way that is not requiring the depth of practice. Now, at the same time, it's the depth of practice that makes you more artful. So it's a bit of a paradox, right? And I'm actually speaking at Converge this year. I haven't tried to put a proposal in for a long time, and I've been listening to coaches talk about how their clients want consulting. They come in and say they want this, how could I actually coach with them? Or they want development, or they want training, or they want action learning. And all of those things might be true, but that's not coaching. And the ICF framework gives you the competency of creating awareness, which has nothing to do with what I'm doing. It has everything to do with who I'm being. And you do not require any content or any context to be expressed from your client to be an effective coach. So if you're going to Converge, I'm going to do a demo from the stage, and I will have told the client, tell me nothing. I don't want to know anything about the circumstance. And I will work with you to find what's the breakthrough that you're looking for. Because I simply want to model how powerful this is. You do not need to know the context of your client. Clients will say all the time, well, I want somebody who's got 10 years in financial services. Do you really think your coach is going to know more than you already know about the business that you're a leader of? That's ridiculous. And what is the thing you don't know anything about? How to lead a team that's 4x the size. I have 10 now, and I'm going to have 50 leaders reporting to me in 6 months. And what's that about? Is that anything to do with the context or the content of your job? No. What does it have to do with, leader? People. Right. Who's the best person to help you discover what you want to do with people more effectively? Long silence, but he ultimately said, me. Exactly. And my job is to be with you and help you harvest that, pull it up and out and embody it. So if you're ever wondering, why am I a coach and what is it that I contribute? It's who you're being and the modeling of stepping into the full authentic self. That's the power of coaching. All the rest of it's window dressing. And it's really easy to get seduced. I need a measurable plan. Yes, you do, leader. And what is the measure you're going to pay attention to? What is the impact you're going to have? What is the contribution to the sales goals when you change the way you're leading? And what will it take for you to modify that? Where's your route keeping you stuck in a model of leading that isn't producing the result you want? What's the risk you're going to take? Every one of those questions is about who he's being. He decides what that measurable goal is, not me. I have a responsibility, however, to be sure that he's doing the hard thinking work to arrive there. And I think this is a place where an awful lot of coaches get those two things conflated. Separate them. You will find you will have much more fun and your clients will follow through. Because it's not your goal they're going after, it's their goal that they're going after. Right? Okay. Where are we going now, Matt? There we go. Practices. So I mentioned that reflection's important. I was surprised, actually, when I looked this up. All these years, I never really studied the word reflect. And from the Latin, it talks about bend backwards, which I thought was very interesting. And the other is without absorbing it. How do we bend backwards without absorbing the past in order to learn about the experience we just had? What's the practice you all have after a session? What kinds of things do you pay attention to when you're done with a client? Popcorn.
I'd like to call it time to decant. You have a good wine, you have to let it sit and open the decanter. I really need time to decant. Like I try to do it as a practice, just sit there and relive kind of like what happened in the session, and then see where the space is, where I had a breakthrough, or what can I do a little bit different next time to better serve my client or I'm serving.
Okay. What else?
I sometimes think that, like, at the end of the day or whatever, I think that make that step into someone's life or help someone, and if it's a small step, come back to my inner self and
I'm like, okay, I'm still me, and then someone is still becoming like a butterfly. Right, and then I got to check.
Yeah, good.
For me, I feel and I write. I feel ignited after each coaching session.
Isn't that the coolest thing about our work? Oh my God. I've never known a job that did that.
That's rewarding, and from there you know that you are doing your passion and serving and helping others. And directly I write the notes about things that I can plan for next session to follow them. And I go have a walk to sketch, about the coaching.
Good. Any more? Yeah.
I'm checking on my energy. And so I've seen at times that I feel like if I'm really energized, which actually tends to be a lot, and I know I was also present and really connected with them. And I had a couple other times that I felt kind of emotionally depleted, and I knew that something else was like a little bit off on my end.
Might have been working a little harder than your client.
Yeah, or my expectations where they would be or where and the time frame, and so those actually stood out to me a lot. We felt completely differently after the other sessions that were just kind of complicated. So yeah, it's kind of an energy check-in.
Beautiful. I'm just going to add one thing that I do quite often in addition to some of the things everybody's already mentioned. I like to send a brief email to the client, just saying, enjoy this morning session, and basically say it's an encouragement. Good luck with your commitment or next steps or whatever the conversation was about. Look forward to being with you, blah, blah, blah. It's like it's a connection, so it's not like it's just talk in the office. And I'm here too, even though work is not here.
You're absolutely right. The entire time that you're in relationship with the client, you're always in their field, whether they're physically in front of you or not. The session is a catalytic moment. You are absolutely aware of them wandering through the world. And if you have a very large practice, guess what that means? Learning how to separate from it, to dip into it and also to come out of it. Otherwise, it's burnout.
I always like to see what came up for me, what I got attached to in the session, what I saw in myself from my client's reflection, and then giving myself some time to process that. Since I keep it out of the session and still have that for me to see what I saw.
Life goes better with a coach. Coaches need coaches. Yeah, absolutely. So we put it back in the neuroscience frame for a moment. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I actually have a spreadsheet. One column is just an overview of where they are. The second column is I find after a session I'm either energized in an egoistic way, wow, that was great, or I feel deflated if they didn't. So the second column is if I feel overly energized, I reflect back and say, okay, where could I have been more silent? I sort of go the other way. And if I feel deflated, that column is like, well, what did work? Where, just because I didn't get the results at the end of the call, I try to keep myself in balance, because I notice that I can either feel like a superhero or totally deflated. So I try to keep myself in equilibrium after every call or session.
Wow, so you have this big spectrum.
Yeah.
Do you let yourself move?
Well, I find that after, I'm usually more one or the other. So in order to balance myself, I check in with myself. So if I'm feeling deflated, like they didn't end the call, like yippee yay, I'm on my way, I can feel bad about that. So that's where I want to check in and say, well, I was silent, and so I try to balance.
Hey, I'm going to disturb you.
Okay, go
Cut
ahead.
it out. Do it in the session. Do it in the session.
Okay, good.
You are not responsible for the outcome, ever.
Yeah.
Your client is responsible for the outcome.
Yes.
So if you're feeling yourself anxious because they aren't making enough progress to the outcome, that's a moment to say, client, where are you? What have you learned so far? What insight is emerging for you? What is it that is a step of progress towards what you wanted from this particular session? What, if any, course correction do you want? All right, where do we go now? Because the minute you take that responsibility, you have disempowered them. You've taken the baton into your own hand.
So let me ask you a question. During the session, I'm feeling really great about myself.
how could I use that? Because I find either polar
I mean, I'm
opposite.
finding myself getting really excited, but I have no idea if you're excited. What's going on for you?
Okay, same thing. Either way, use it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, got it.
In the moment,
Right.
because it's in the field anyway. And every time you deny acknowledging, noticing and naming what's going on in the field, it rips the fabric of trust.
And I have a question, because when you mentioned that you go to the museum and you see the picture and you someday you see something, right? Many times when I'm with clients in the reflection piece, and I said, you told me this, let me tell you what I saw or the story is coming to me. I'll tell you, let me know. And then I either say, I see this image or I see this other conversation. And then when I tell them that it's a paraphrasing, but it's like a paraphrasing of what came to me, that's a reflection. And I really try to not interpret and say, tell me what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
And sometimes they stop in the silence and say, how can someone show me that part of the picture, you know? Because it's hard what you just said to her here. Try not to be responsible for the outcome, especially if you one day worked in the corporate world and you did that, right? But I think that's what's coming for me in terms of reflection is like, I saw something that I don't know where it came from, but I have to share with you. I'm giving you back.
See, this is what we do. That is the doing of coaching, is the space that gets created for something to be emergent, right? So the only calibration that I'd invite you to experiment with a little bit is that when you have an image emerge or a feeling or a sensation, that you first say to the client, what's happening for you right now? And clients will sometimes say, I feel like I just lost my way. I'm feeling a little confused. I'm feeling in this neutral zone, which I'm like, yeah, we're finally getting somewhere. Right? They finally let go of the attachment to knowing and looking right with me. Like, stop being a good client. That's ridiculous. And in that confusion place, I'll say, I'm noticing a few things. I wonder if you're available for me to reflect those to you. And this is direct communication. I had an image emerge. I could feel in my own body everything kind of slowed down a little bit. And I wonder, when do you let yourself slow down? And what lives in that slower pace for you? And we're right back into the coaching. So that implicit, unsaid region is pregnant with all kinds of good, juicy stuff. We must be with it in the moment. That's what I mean about an inner coach, right? Being able to stay connected to that inner coach as you're working and bring it into the space. Now, I love the fact that you're all worried about, no, that's the wrong word, I don't want to say worried. You're attentive to quality and that you're having a reflective practice afterwards to say what worked and what didn't and where was I energized and where was I feeling fatigued. That's wonderful. Please be sure that you are claiming and owning the things you do well, because what we see with everybody we work with is they don't celebrate. You know, harvest, if something changed, they used a new behavior, they used a new mindset, and it produced what they want, and they don't allow that to seep in and get integrated, and they're on to the next change, and they're on to the next change, and they're on to the next change, and the next thing you know, they're feeling exhausted and burnt out, because that activates scarcity. I must not be enough. There's something else to do. So if your client is reflecting back to you, can we just have a conversation today? I can't do one more thing. I can't leave here with one more action plan, right? That's a signal to you that you might be on your agenda about their growth rather than being with where they are and what pace is appropriate for them in the context of their lives.
Yes, mentioned about the reflection. I thought of the word lean in, that, and you had kind of went like that with your back. In order to give permission for them to give themselves permission.
Yeah.
To get to their truth of it, to lean in, you have to lean back a little bit, but to see how they were being, because we're human beings, being a certain way and all certain things, back then to see the possibilities of how to be going forward.
Yeah. You know, I often use the metaphor of rear view mirror, front windshield. Coaching is about front windshield work. And that doesn't mean we don't want to grab from the past, of course. that who you are today is the compilation. I started to say the neuroscience frame is everything that you are, and how you see the world is based on your experiences. You have a huge piggy bank full of experiences. And you take in information and you take in energy. And our reticular activating system and all of our organs are taking in all kinds of information all the time. And we push most of it out because we can't process the many bits. We're just not sophisticated enough yet as animals. But it's that experience bank that has us interpreting, trying to figure out what the meaning of something is and whether it's something I'm going to take the risk to pursue or not. When a client starts to look in the rearview mirror, that's a signal to you that they've got some fear up because they're trying to go and get something that's familiar. And that's a signal to slow down a little bit and say, and who are you today? As a result of all of that, who are you right now? What does remembering all of that provide you as a starting point for where you want to go next? So you're in the front windshield business, and you want to help your clients be in the front windshield business, because that's what's in their control, is the next choice they're going to make. You can't do anything about the past. And if they stay connected to the past, all bets are off. Was that you? Is there a question on Facebook? You were just clearing your throat. Okay. All right. So let's go to the next page. The next, let's see, 1, 2, 3 pages are, whether we get to them or not, I don't know. But I want to just call attention that these are all practice tools for you to play around with a little bit. And on the slide that says Ganja Inner Wisdom, these are inquiry questions. And they're ones that I use on a pretty regular basis, depending on what's going on in my practice. If I'm feeling like I've been heavy lifting and I'm getting exhausted, I'm looking at what are the choices and actions that empower me to wake up and own my full potency. Because I am doing something for my client's potency instead of my potency. And unless I come back and refill my cup, I'm going to be tempted to do it again because I'm trying somehow to feel better by making my client get somewhere. Really doesn't work like that. Right?
You feel it requires a level of discipline.
Oh, big time.
We can fall into our own trap.
Absolutely. And I think that, when you're thinking about business planning, traditionally we're all taught to kind of do whatever your debits and credits are on your spreadsheet and think about how many clients do I really want to work with and how much time do I allocate and where do those clients live. You do your marketing and your social media. And if you don't have a bucket somewhere in your business plan about how you attend to your own well, you will hit burnout. Yeah. It's a practice. It's a very important practice to attend to yourself. Yeah, unfortunately. And that actually happened to me. My great friend and colleague over here, John Arnold, and I worked together in a previous life, actually 2 previous lives. And I was on an airplane more than I was at my home. And after 4 years, I pretty much blew out my adrenal system, and I took a sabbatical for 2 years. I was not attending to my well-being. We were doing great work. We were slaying the dragon. Yeah, I nearly slayed myself. So this is a really important thing to find your way with.
When you get that burnout point, do you have a coach that you were working with that
Yes.
spotted that earlier?
Yes, I was working with a coach who, unbeknownst to me, was intimidated by me and was not telling me the truth. So, moral to the story was, I do a heck of a lot more interviewing when I'm ready to engage with a new coach, and I change coaches about every 3 or 4 years because I realized the person who selected that coach is not the person I am now. Thank God, I've done some growing. And it's time for me to open the horizons again. I have a very extensive interview process that I go through with a new coach. And one of the questions I ask is, what gives you the courage to challenge me? Where does that come from for you? What are your practices so that you're not getting hooked into my field? No projection here. This is a projection-free zone. If I'm going to do any learning, I need a coach that can do that. And all of you do, by the way. It's not just unique to me. Find the coach that will say the things to you that you won't say to yourself. And On the next page, the ABCs. This is actually something I also give to my clients. Artful pause. Artful pause. I have a dear friend who's also a coach and an Enneagram instructor, and so work in a high-risk OBGYN practice. And when Donna was first learning about coaching, it was pushing up against the Hippocratic Oath. That sometimes people aren't whole, resourceful, capable, and creative, and sometimes they are accountable for making sure that they have well-being. So she couldn't let go of being responsible for the outcome. And pause was her way out. It was that she learned to just take a breath and pause for a second and say, is this really mine to do? Who is this person in front of me? What is it that they're capable of doing for themselves? What must they do for themselves? Because I cannot go home with them post-surgery. And it completely shifted her relationship in the medical practice. And she went on to do another 12 years of consulting in medical practices to help nurses reduce burnout because they were so over-responsible for their patients. And their patient outcomes were falling because people would go home and not have any clue what was next. This is actually kind of true in all healthcare. How many of you work in the healthcare space? Anybody? Oh. Yeah, it's a big deal. Nurse burnout, and we're about to lose the major generation of nursing is all at retirement age right now. So unless their organization will allow them, and JCO regulations will allow them to stay in nursing, we're going to have a huge shortage in the next decade. Got to do something about this burnout thing. Breathe into the heart. How many of you know Heart Math? Heart Math Institute. Okay, lots and lots of excellent tools there. But a really simple thing that I do with clients, and I do it for myself, is to help them connect to a memory somewhere in their life where they experience whatever bliss means to them. Nothing to be done, nowhere to go, no one to be with but yourself, and you're in that moment and you can feel that you have untethered joy. And to take a few more deep breaths and to bring that image very fully alive in your mind's eye. And then with your breath, move it into the center of your chest, wherever it is you imagine that your heart is. And now in this moment, be still. Until you can sense your heartbeat, maybe you hear it, maybe you feel it. And with your breath, have that heartbeat grow stronger until that experience is where you are right now. And as you breathe, it's emanating from the front and from the back, as if you are in a bubble and right there in that experience. And as you breathe that in, feel your whole being settle into a place of unconditional self-love. And knowing that image is solidly in your heart, you can always return to it. In a simple few seconds, we've done this activity. If there was a little door, walk out from your heart and close the door. Now breathe back into your body and come back into this space where we are here in South Florida. That's breathing in the heart. Whatever way you want to do that, if you do that practice, you'll find yourself able to restore from those sessions where you feel like you're exhausted at the end of them. Breathe into your heart, come back home to yourself, and let go that happened, so that when you are in reflection about it, it's, oh, this is when the client hooked me into taking care of it for them. And you can hold it with a sense of humor. Instead of the hammer on the top of your head, don't do that. Right? That's not a good quality practice. But a reflection that can see, oh, this is the place in the relationship where we fell out of presence with each other. And I picked up the baton and started leading. It happens to all of us. It's how you recover from it that makes the difference. And that's the centering gratitude. A colleague of mine, Mark Thompson, who I worked with at Schwab, and he's gone on to be, he's an executive coach out in the world these days. And he gave me this gratitude practice. There's lots of them out here, but here's one that I've been using recently, which is at the end of the day, and on a piece of paper, put a line down the center, and on the left-hand side, Write down 3 things that you are absolutely grateful that you contributed into the world. Like, I did this today, and I feel grateful that I had the privilege to do that. So 3 things that you were the source of, something important and valuable happening. And then on the right-hand side of the page, who are 3 people that you interfaced with today that made something really magical happen for you? Being grateful for those 3 people. And I thought, yeah, I'll do that for 30 days and see what happens. About 2 weeks in, I started to notice something. People on the right-hand side had something to do with the things I was writing on the left-hand side. Moral to the story is, we live in a community. We help each other. We are always, God bless you, we are always co-creating and contributing. We're all in the field together. But it was the gratitude practice that helped me realize that. God bless you.
We are connected.
Yeah, we are connected. We are all one. That's exactly right. All right, so that's the ABCs. And then the last piece here, I'm going to describe a little bit, and then I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of a closing exercise with each other. As part of that exploration around why does what we do work in the coach training field, and the emergence for me of thinking about sovereignty and what is it to live sovereign, what is it to be sovereign as a coach, I said, there's something we do in our process as coaches that helps us stay out of the danger zone of control and leading and over responsibility. And you've probably seen this with your clients, that people come to us because they're having a result they don't like. Uncomfortable, it's disappointing, it's frustrating, whatever it might be. And they've been looking at actions and they've been changing their actions, but it's not changing their results, and they're just beside themselves. What in the world am I going to do? I can't figure this out. And an awful lot of coaches spend a lot of time brainstorming about new actions. But if we do that, we're going to be caught in the rearview mirror, right? We're still coming from the familiar, trying to just move the chairs on the Titanic. And what's required is that we give them a process to reflect. What was it that was the source or the fuel of the decision I made? When I chose that action, what did I align that to? It's usually going to be a value, or maybe an essential trait, or somebody else's value because they did it because somebody else told them to. Whatever it was, something was the basis of the action they chose. And then go back another step. What were you believing when you aligned to that particular basis? What was the assumption? What was the belief? What was the preference? What was the bias? What was the mental model? All that stuff that's in the Razzball. Helping them to connect to exactly what's motivating how they're choosing what they align to and ultimately the action they take. And then there's one more step, which Marcia goes back to the picture. What were you aware of? What were you paying attention to when you connected to that belief and then that value and then took that action? And what was there that you discounted? What did you ignore? What did you dismiss? And when the client can get that, now we can go forward. Oh, now that I see this, I can align to this belief in myself, which gives me access to honor my self-respect value. And now see there's a whole bunch of things I could be doing, right? Creating awareness is awareness, clarity, alignment. What's the rhythm that I follow as a human being that drives the choices that I'm making? When we bring that to awareness, it's unlimited, the ideas that you can do. That's front and shield. So take a moment and turn to a partner. What is it that you became aware of today, given what you said is your intention? And as a result, you're connecting it to some belief inside of you and some value that you want to honor more fully as a result of being here today. Okay? Awareness, clarity, alignment. Is there anybody on Facebook?
So later I'll take all these slides down the
How has it been for you? It occurred to me this morning when I was sitting in meditation that you might find this really useful. Another dive into the word. We're talking about it to be immersed in it. I even stayed on time. Amazing. That doesn't always happen. As you can tell, I get kind of excited talking about this stuff. I didn't see this. Wow, that's okay.
I'm just here. I don't have
people say that what we're all seeking is meaning for life. I don't think that's what we're really seeking. I think that what we're seeking is an experience of being alive, so that our life experiences on the purely physical plane will have resonances with our own innermost being and reality, so that we actually feel the rapture of being alive. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
All right. That was so awesome. Guys, I was saying in the back of the room, this is the joy I have of working with this woman. I'm constantly in a state of
Well,
work.
I love you.
I am. I've hit the lottery. Okay, and Angela and I got so excited about introductions, we forgot our first word. So I think to be in integrity, I'm going to pass this around to the people that are here. This is your first word, and then your second word for your CCE is presence.